Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Although not in a polyamorous relationship with Kathleen Stock and Helen, but what can we do? Things have changed.
I'll do my best. On my own.
I know you will. Since the last time I was here, I can see at least 3 women on our side with blue fringes. So we're not letting them own that, are we? And I endorse everything that Helen says. She's 100% right. And one thing that has really given me hope and joy, actually, is how we're approaching the tipping point of this issue, not because of sport, which so many people said would be the tipping point, but by prisons. And the reason why... The reason why those, I think, outside of the movement to end male violence thought it would be sport is because not very many people give a damn about women in prison, about prisons per se, because most of us will never see the inside of a prison, either as a convicted criminal or as a visitor. But we all, every single woman in this room, knows the fear, and unfortunately many of us know the reality of rape. And that's why prisons has been and always would be the tipping point. Because care or not care about those incarcerated women, what gives us more of a sense of fear and helplessness is the idea that we are locked inside with a rapist, with people that hold the key to our freedom and liberty, being terrified to help us either prevent being raped or report us when we are raped, because they are more scared of being called transphobic by Karen White, Barbie Kardashian, or this latest fucker. I read the rules, by the way, about the engagement of coming to this establishment before.
And then ignored them.
I think that's all right. I think that one's all right. Anyway, they understand, we understand that this is an emergency situation. When we're talking about the total and utter sick fantasy that some politicians and government officials and others have, that these men are actually women. Nobody, not one person on this planet, thinks that trans women are women. Not one. I won't insult anybody in this room by talking about how misogyny underpins transgender ideology, because we all know it. We know it, that's why we're here. We're not here because we think that trans people are freaks. We're not here because we want to point the finger at marginalised groups. Although how on earth any of us come to think that men somehow were being oppressed by women is the Orwellian twist of last century and this. But you all know that this is about misogyny, but I think what many still haven't grasped is how it's about class prejudice, and it's about women at the lowest bottom of the ladder in society. Working class women, unemployed women on benefits, single mothers, scum. The scum of the earth. The scum that are not supposed to be in institutions like this. Those women that are not deserving of an education or a voice. And it's about class because guess who comes out worse? When we have this triple-headed monster that young women are coming to believe in, which is the sex trade, the surrogacy trade, and transgender ideology. These are the 3 things. And they all go together. You will not find one hardcore trans activist who will say that prostitution is an abomination, and it's a cause and a consequence of women's oppression. You will hear them say sex work is work, blowjobs are real jobs. That's what you'll hear. And you'll also hear them talk about women's bodily autonomy. Isn't it funny when they talk about surrogacy? It's all about the rights of women in this new world. I can't imagine who it benefits to have the surrogacy trade completely normalised, the inside of a woman's body used as a workplace, a woman's vagina, mouth and anus used as a workplace for men's pleasure, for profit. I can't imagine the link between those two atrocities and trans ideology. Well, in case you can't imagine, let me tell you it's men. It's the male sex right. Well, you might be thinking, but surrogacy. But hang on a minute. But what about those infertile people? Yes, sometimes we actually refer to gay male couples as infertile. Probably that's because they are, right? That's because some people can't have their own biological child, right? So where do they look? They look to a rented womb. And these are not middle-class affluent women. You'll all know her. You'll all know the one. You'll all know the altruistic surrogate. She's the poster girl. She's very similar to the sex worker whose kids go to private school. And she's earned lots of money. She has a second home in the Cotswolds. She's never, ever met a bad client. Everything's great. The altruistic surrogate, she didn't do it for the profit. These are lovely people that she was doing this as a favour for. There's no harm to anyone involved. They're poster girls. And there's also a poster girl when it comes to trans ideology and the fact that not just her womb, her vagina, her anus or her mouth are being used for patriarchal privilege, but actually her entire body is colonised and it then becomes male. The girl that says she is a trans boy or she's non-binary, and there's a doctor there willing to remove her healthy breasts. She's a lesbian. She hates her body. She's been sexually abused by men from a young age. This is her. And you say, well, how can that be about class prejudice? Because actually, and this is a fair question if you were to ask it, those young women out there today, I used to not say handmaidens. Helen and I were talking earlier. I can't find a better or more appropriate word. So the handmaidens to patriarchy out there, they're very privileged middle-class girls, women. So how can this be about class? Because they're the ones pushing this ideology. Well, here's the rub. Just like the ones who we hear on the radio and TV, we read about in print, and we see their research in universities when it comes to sex work, or how surrogacy is just about women's bodily autonomy. And then it feeds down to the most oppressed women, the working class, the scum, the worthless, the women that don't matter, the women that don't count. Just like that feeds down to women at the bottom, so does transgender ideology. Because as some of you might know, it's just been recently revealed that the highest number of referrals of girls to GIDS, to gender clinics, in the UK are girls from Blackpool. And Blackpool isn't really known as a town where upper middle class, highly educated girls roam. I'll tell you what the town is known for. It's known to have the highest suicide rate amongst young women under the age of 18. It's got the highest number of deaths from drugs of girls under the age of 18. It's got 3 to 4 times the number of children in care than the rest of the nation. It has the highest number of sexually abused girls and the highest number of recorded sex offenders living in that town. Now, can you make the connections here? These are working class girls from impoverished communities who have been raped and sexually assaulted. Many of them have been in care. What happens when you go into care? Because I was scratching my head when I heard about the Blackpool referrals, and it's a town that I know of. I've reported on it before about sexual abuse and grooming gangs. And I thought, what the hell? How come these girls have all swallowed the trans Kool-Aid? And then I thought, what do girls have when they're in care? They have social workers, don't they? And I wonder if that's a connection, because social workers have been trained by the likes of Stonewall and mermaids and gendered intelligence and the like. So this is an ideology that affects working class girls and women more than it does the upper class girls and women. But make no mistake, it's coming from the top. It's coming from the upper middle classes, and if we don't stop it, we're throwing working class women to the wolves. And feminism, if it's about anything, is supposed to be about women at the bottom, not at the top. Thank you.